Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 5 of Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro, Second Attack. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So it seems like everything's just sort of returning to the status quo, more or less. I'm wondering if maybe there's a little tension considering everything that happened between Senpai Nagatoro and Nagatoro's older sister. I mean, Nagatoro, she seems to be more reserved than she normally would be in a situation like this, She's keeping a bit of a impassive expression on her face, but I guess it makes sense that Senpai would be kind of thinking to himself, is it appropriate to address her by her first name? And, I mean, from what I know, probably not, you gotta ease into things, If he was making such a big deal about knowing what her name was, just sort of using it off the bat would already be, for want of a better term, a little presumptuous. I mean, Senpai really can't win for trying. When you get down to it, Nagatoro has to pick on him a little bit. Even if she's not exactly, confident in her position. And they really are accentuating certain bits here and there, but I guess, Nagatoro was just playing around. I suppose that's par for the course, really. You can only have too much, actual romantic stuff, There has to be something to balance it out. Now, it is interesting that Nagatoro was sort of referring to, a clickbait article to sort of tease Senpai. I mean, it seems to be working, but I have to wonder, has the well run so dry that she has to resort to, stupid list articles like that? I mean, for what it's worth, it does seem to be working as advertised, but I don't know, there's something, vaguely soulless about that, if you want to tease a man, you have to do it yourself. So I feel like, if they're getting into a physical confrontation in public, something's going to go wrong eventually. It is interesting that Senpai's actually sort of putting up a fight here, and I guess against all odds going on the offensive here, good on him, he's finally learning. However, it seems as though, they just sort of held hands without protection. Oh dear. And holding hands is bad enough, but they sort of interlaced their fingers too, that's some serious stuff. He's gonna have to start calling her Hayase now. I mean, she's trying to salvage the situation by saying, no, I'm just practicing judo on him, but nobody believes that. That's a pretty lame excuse, all things concerned. So it seems to me that based on the title of this episode... Oh, I think I know what's gonna happen here. You know, Senpai's coming down with the cold, and the title pertains to his room. You know, it seems as though Nagatoro's gonna be taking care of him. So, it is actually interesting that this is sort of like the first time we're seeing Senpai's mom, and, you know, they are kind of similar. It's something I had mentioned before that I think sort of, hereditary traits being expressed in anime is something interesting. Like, it's a little thing, and it's totally trite, but I find it interesting. So I guess the idea here is Senpai's mom's on a business trip, and whether or not Senpai's actually suffering from a bad cold, I think Nagatoro is going to take advantage of... Well, maybe take advantage is too strong. You know, she's going to drop by, return the favor. You know, the cat returns the favor, as it were. And I guess that's that. You know, something interesting may or may not happen to complicate things. But, you know what? I'm feeling a wholesome episode coming on. Nagatoro is going to be in rare form, and she's going to be all about making sure Senpai feels better. I mean, it's interesting that just because he's not at school, she's sort of like teasing him via text messages, like, have you fled overseas to escape from your various crimes? And, you know, the answer is no, he's just sick. And in all likelihood, he caught the cold from her. I wonder if that's going to factor into things, you know, if she feels like responsible for it. Yeah, this is interesting. Like, a rare sighting of concerned Nagatoro. Here we go, you know, this is good stuff. She does feel guilty and she's apologetic. You know, that's something you don't often see. Alright, so, you know, once again, Nagatoro's sort of setting herself up here. It's like, oh, you know, your parents will get mad at you if you're sick and out and about. He's like, well, my parents are out, so I'm by myself. You know, that's an opportunity. I mean, by his own admission, you know, he wasn't feeling terrible or anything, just sort of like not good enough to go to school. Although that said, you know, he does look decidedly worse now. You know, maybe there will be like a little bit of seriousness played for drama here in terms of his sickness. Wow, you know, that's definitely unsettling to have Nagatoro sort of skulking by the window. Like, Nagatoro's sister gave Senpai the business for just sort of like walking through the gate and approaching the door, but, you know, Nagatoro decided to sort of like sneak around back and press her face up against the window. Like, I guess her heart's in the right place, but, you know, if only Senpai had an older brother who was willing to call the cops on her, that would be kind of funny. Now, it is interesting that Nagatoro is essentially offering the same excuses Senpai did when this whole thing happened, you know? I mean, I guess he's good enough not to give her grief for it, considering he had done the same thing, but, you know, it's interesting that they're both sort of doing the same kind of deal here. You know, I'm wondering if maybe Senpai has a sort of ulterior motive for not wanting to invite her in. Like, you know, maybe it's a bridge too far, but I don't know. Nagataro's not going for it, you know. Like, she is here to help. Sleeping on the couch won't do, you know, get into bed. I mean, good on Nagatoro, you know, she normally is rather assertive, but, you know, she is now using her powers for good rather than for evil. I do feel a little bit sorry for Senpai, because, you know, Nagatoro is immediately sort of pushing him around, and seeing as how she's now in his room, you know, naturally only good things can happen from here, you know. Surely he wouldn't happen to have a little bit of questionable material lying out in relatively plain sight. I mean, Nagatoro, she's latched right onto it, you know, surely there's going to be something questionable around here somewhere, and she is dedicated to finding it now. You know, it seems like she really has pegged all the appropriate hiding spots, but I guess fortunately she has enough sense to, like, you know, cut it out. You know, if Senpai's not feeling well, you know, he's gonna have to get better before he can pick on him again. So it seems like, you know, Nagatoro's not going to let the lack of a thermometer go to waste here. If you can't just, like, take the temperature manually, then you can sort of feel it out, I guess. You know, I was always under the impression that you would use the back of your hand to feel somebody's temperature manually, just because the back of your hand is more receptive to heat. But, you know, using your forehead, that's a darn sight more intimate, you know? And I feel like Nagatoro's doing that on purpose. So, considering that Senpai, you know, he was missing school, like, this was a school day, and if Nagatoro came here right after school, based on that first sort of opening shot, you know, she spent, like, the better part of the rest of the day tending to Senpai. And I feel like, you know, that's a pretty meaningful thing to do, spending time taking care of someone. There we go. This is the heartwarming stuff I want. You know, Nagatoro's helping Senpai feel better, putting a cold washcloth on his head, giving him some water. This is the good stuff. Oh dear. So it seems to me that Nagatoro is probably talking to her sister or family, and they're sort of giving her a little grief for it. I'd have to imagine it was her sister, based on the conversation, but, you know, it probably doesn't matter too much. So unfortunately, it seems like it's only going to be Senpai and Nagatoro for a little while. Nagatoro doesn't seem to want to leave him alone, which, you know, I guess is somewhat understandable. You know, if all the other stuff weren't enough, she's actually going to the effort to sort of cook something for him. You know, it's not like cooking is too elaborate when you're feeling sick. You generally sort of stick to bland things. And I know, sort of stereotypically, rice porridge is the way to go. But, it's nice to have somebody go to the effort for you. So she is just sort of leaving him alone, and I don't know, there's something in the way she's saying I might have to do a little bit of shopping, which, I don't know. I'm wondering what exactly she's doing here, if she's cooking something extra special or what the deal is. So this is interesting. Senpai is having a bit of a fever dream, presumably of the future when he and Nagatoro are married. And, Nagatoro, the ubiquitous businesswoman, is taking time off from work to take care of him. And, that's nice, even if it is sort of like a fever dream. It is interesting how his dream and reality are sort of mingling together, and I guess when you get down to it, there isn't too much different between the two. Ooh, there we have it. He actually called her by her first name, which is certainly meaningful. I guess it would make sense if he was sort of having a fever dream that she was his wife. But in a situation like this, it's definitely out there, but it could be excused considering that he's not really with it right now. She can't even tease him about it. He just sort of called her by her first name and dipped into unconsciousness, That is a solid W for Senpai right there, I would say. Now, I guess the only real question is he going to say something else in his sleep? Oh boy. Man, they're really going for it in this episode. Nagatoro's trying to bait him into saying it again, saying that she'll kiss him in his sleep, but, the dude's out. No amount of goading is gonna get him to respond. Ooh boy. I kinda predicted something like this. I don't know if anything's going to come of it. At the very least, Senpai's mom didn't, barge right in with juice or anything like in the previous episode. So, a lot of stuff happened, but I'd be more than willing to bet that Senpai doesn't remember and Nagatoro's not going to bring it up. Unfortunately. So I guess it's only natural that Senpai's mom is going to start grilling him about the girl that was over. It's only natural. Moms do that. But I guess, I would have to hope that Nagatoro made a good first impression. It is odd that she's flustered, but I guess it makes sense seeing as how she's dealing with an adult rather than a peer. Yeah, she really just sort of, left pretty quickly. I guess it kind of makes sense if she's sort of the only one awake, just sort of sitting around. That's kind of weird, Man, they really did pack a whole bunch of interesting developments into this episode. And unfortunately, I don't think anything's really gonna come of it, at least not right away, but, it's it's a little bit of a foundation for what will surely and hopefully happen later. So here we go. Senpai's not sure how much of what had happened was a dream. And I guess that's fair. I've had some really vivid dreams that seem to mesh with reality, and it's unclear exactly what's real and what's a dream, and sometimes it's better to just try and figure it out rather than ask. Yeah, I'd imagine that considering that this whole thing was embarrassing for Nagatoro and Senpai doesn't know what's real or not, nobody's really going to broach the topic. And it's rather unfortunate. Yeah, well, I guess they have to puncture the mood a little bit, Things were a little too heartwarming. Oh dear. Well, it seems like, just as the episode began, so shall it end, Senpai and Nagatoro are getting into an interesting situation just in time for her friends to show up, and, it's totally judo, you guys, I swear, but, it just doesn't fool anybody. It doesn't work. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.